Sure. So currently I work at Microsoft and I lead the customer success team for modern work. Modern work encompasses all the software as a service portfolio of Microsoft that talks about or enables hybrid work, productivity, collaborative apps, um low code, no code analytics platform. Uh, Basically, anything that enables human to human interaction and decision making. I think one of the most uh, proliferate technologies that are getting utilized, where AI is sort of becoming invisible, are is dispatch really, because all your bots, conversational help, intelligence that is coming for productivity and so on and so forth, which is really backed by AI, sort of becomes invisible for the end user, but end user is still always benefiting from those set of technologies. I would say bubble still exists. I mean, we still so there is this what is possible on the ground with AI, and there is definitely that picture of Marvel, Jarvis, uh, which is like AI, sci-fi AI. But I think that is inspirational, right? I mean, we definitely want to be heading there, if not there, and that I am sure keeps a lot of people going in terms of sheerly making the progress. Having said that, I do think that we have come a long way, um, both in terms of improving the accuracy of the predictions that AI is making, and also in terms of our ability to understand the risks versus the benefit conversation, and hence our ability to trust it better, right? I think both the things will have to sort of proliferate. So I think we have come a long way, but there is a long way to go, is how I will put it in the current context, Subin. I think that it would help us better if we start focusing it on the industry wide problem statements, right? So the industries that come to my mind, where we have some of the biggest challenges to tackle, and I'm surely prioritizing this based on the potential to save lives. I think that's how I would rather structure this. The industries that come to my mind are definitely healthcare. You are already active on that. So, healthcare, automotive and manufacturing, and then I think the agriculture. Uh, Three industries, I believe, if we there are a bunch of problems that are simply beyond individual human capacity to solve, and if we solve it, will potentially accelerate a lot of life-saving outcomes. Now, if I may just dig a bit deeper on what I'm saying, I think within healthcare you could look at two or three areas, right? One is definitely the diagnosis part itself. I mean, just based on the amount of instrumentation that is increasing day by day, and the way the doctors could benefit by looking at the research findings and hence correlating that to the diagnosis data and coming to correlating that with the report data and coming to a right diagnosis. I think it is humanly impossible for the doctors to keep track of all the information that gets flooded. So you have a very high potential by bringing AI in, which can learn and churn the data, and really help us get to a better diagnosis. And the second is really directly again correlated to the treatment plan, right? I mean, it's like the treatment plan after the diagnosis is may vary based on the individual profile, and it may come from your genome sequencing. It may have some individual attributes. It may also have a local geopolitical factor or your geosocial factors coming in that may impact a patient's response to a treatment plan. And again, keeping track of all of this information and then again reviewing it in context of this demography of one for that individual patient and really come up with a precision treatment plan may not be possible for an individual doctor who is sitting at a remote place, right? Maybe a village. So an assistant who could help gain to that insight and hence come up with the right kind of plan may again be life altering. And third is the sheer potential to do the drug discovery and come up with the new drugs, more precision drugs in a shorter amount of possible amount of time in the first place. So that's how I look at the healthcare impact in the AI. If I were to talk a bit about, I think the manufacturing and automotive, it's really about the high danger zone areas, right? Now, do you want to really want to send a human being to an area where they are exposing their life or risk? There is a risk to their life, maybe a maintenance of a high pillar or an electrically charged pillar and so on and so forth, right? So your ability to train the machines to do some of these tasks, like even in the nuclear power plant, some maintenance work where you are exposed to say a radioactive damage and so on and so forth, your ability to create those kind of robotics with the knowledge, I think can really result in lesser occupational hazards to a lot of people who are in that zone. Similarly, the automotive guidance, your ability to predict the wear and tear of the complex engineering systems that we run today, both in the cars, but even in places. You see so many flight accidents nowadays, surely because of our inability to catch a predictive maintenance problem ahead of the time, right? So all the locomotive, which we take for granted nowadays, but also is a rising cost for accidental deaths, we could potentially prevent by bringing the AI in. Again, agriculture is an area very relevant for India. I think creating a profitable profession out of agriculture is the need of the hour if we really want people to spend time on agriculture as one of the key occupation profession which can actually benefit, and it's eventually we will struggle to feed the rising population on the planet overall, and I think for the India the problem is much more aggravated. So increasing your crop yield, doing the right kind of weather forecasting, climate change forecasting, your soil management, soil maintenance, all of these are really talking towards getting to the right outcome on the agriculture, which eventually will help us resolve some of the hunger problem that India faces. So I would rather put these three buckets on the top in the harder problem that AI could potentially solve. I will have three call outs on the challenge. The first one is the dependency of the current AI on data. And the data needs to be right, and the data needs to be complete and coming via the trusted source. I think the lack of digitization in many areas in India itself, I think, limits the use of AI in many of these fields. So I would call out that, so either we figure out, or hopefully we mature AI in a way where our dependency on the data reduces quite a bit, or we figure out the digital transformation initiatives in India and we get them right and at speed, so that the right kind of data pipelines are created. I think that's the first challenge that I will call out. The second one is, again, which is sort of dependent, but is also regarding the cultural issue, is the trust factor. How confident am I as an individual to trust a robot's opinion versus an actual doctor's opinion? How confident am I to give an interview to an actual HR or a manager versus to a machine, right? So I think that is also an area of concern if you really want to have a very large scale adoption at a large scale of the problems that exists in India. And the third one that I will call out is really the availability of the skills itself. I think a lot of organizations, even in the enterprise segment, companies are calling out that they struggle to hire the right kind of skills to get the relevant models, insights built And it's not just about getting the maths right. I think you need a lot of proliferate knowledge in terms of maths, data science, domain problem, and then the coding or the modeling expertise itself, and so on and so forth. So yeah, again, three areas of why we are not really successful: availability of the data, trust, and skills. There is no alternative to learn. So I think we simply have to get this right, that it's a new emerging area, and anyone who is interested in spending time in this professionally need to learn. Now, what they learn will change, but I think getting the basics right at scale is very important for India. So I would rather see that getting the data science as a core curriculum right from, I think, the high school level, because people start learning statistical concepts at that level in India. Right from the high school level, if you could start encouraging this, I think you are building a generation which thinks about data first. That is fundamental. Then you need a lot of professionals who understand. So a set of courses and curriculums which can bring professionals who have gained experience in different fields, in the domains like a financial industry or a healthcare industry, and bring them back into the mainstream and start thinking about how could their professions or their industry benefit from this, and hence creating those curated learning courses can also be very important and imperative. The third one, we could do it a bit smarter, and we could potentially deploy AI for AI, and we could say, okay, here is a bunch of machines that we could prioritize building, and they could eventually help us replace some of the skills that are not humanly possible or coming in at the pace that we intend them to come in, right? I think everyone is taking their shot at building the trust on AI, responsible AI, ethical AI. I think every large enterprise who is pursuing AI is thinking about it. We are already seeing a lot of controversial conversation coming up with Meta, Google, and so on and so forth. It's going to be a learning journey. I don't think there is an easy answer on how to get this right, even at a national level. But I think putting up the right governance hooks so that we have a reasonable way to say anything that is getting in the production is at least adhering to this set of guidelines would be a fair start. The second point is, I think the companies who are building the models, I think they need to be very aware that compliance is a starting point, and they have to really increase their skin in the game, or their involvement and their own moral compass, I would say, to ensure even if that translates into a larger development cycle or whatever that may be, the commitment to get this right from the beginning, in terms of removing the bias, increasing the fairness, and so on and so forth. And the third is actually an emerging problem that I see, where we are sort of oversimplifying the entire ethics issue. And we are hoping that the AI developers, by following a bunch of guidelines, will end up embedding ethics in the models, which is an oversimplification of how this field will operate. And I think we will have to collectively think about it's not really going to be an AI developers problem, but how do we make it as a more holistic solution? Basically, the integration of AI with metaverse, the quantum computing, and the cyber security. I think these three things I am super interested. I am myself following how this is panning out. The second one is AI on every device. I think we have started that your mobile is activated. I think all your electronic gadgets are getting there. We are having wearables. So I think in a day, there are a lot of touch points now for an individual where you are using AI without being aware of it. And that's a true mark of potent technology, that it starts to become invisible eventually. And the third one is again the creative AI. I think we will see a lot of new art forms emerging out of this, probably new business models. But yeah, I'm super interested in looking at that space.